What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our video series where we take a look at all the playable options to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then later in the week we build them together just so that you can see how one of those goes. Now, this week is a bittersweet week as we finish up the Artificer class, and we will be moving on to Barbarian next week. But we still have the Battlesmith to go, and so if you have ever wanted a giant steel puppy to go around and bite people for you and defend you and just make you better in combat, go ahead and leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, click that bell so that you're notified of all of my future videos. As you can see, most people are actually not subscribed to this channel who view it, and so it would be really great if you would go ahead and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, it helps us to hopefully eventually get monetized, that sort of thing, and I really appreciate it. As for down below, leave me a comment to help us beat the YouTube algorithm. Who is your favorite animal sidekick in any movie, book, anything like that? Mine is going to be Baloo from Jungle Book because he's just the best. Not the new one, not the new one, but the old one. The old one's way better. So the Battlesmith is very interesting as it adds a new companion for the Artificer. So last week we talked about the Artillerist with his little cannons, and then this week we have a giant steel dog or lion or whatever animal you want to conjure up for that. And it adds a lot of really interesting benefits. And so we're going to talk about today just how good or bad this is and how it compares to the rest of the subclasses. So at level 3, we get 4 class features, which is really awesome. The first is, of course, tool proficiencies. And of course, we're going to give this a 4 out of 10. It's the reason it's so low is because it could have been something else, and tool proficiencies aren't really going to come up all that often. It just depends on your dungeon master. Some dungeon masters make these incredibly useful, and to most, it's just completely useless and is never going to come up. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, but it could vary at your table. Also at 3rd level, we get an expanded spell list, just like all of the others, and this one's interesting. It's not bad at all. I definitely consider it to be middle of the road, though. The Armorer and the Artillerist definitely have better expanded spell lists, in my opinion. So, you know, we do get Shield, which is great. We also get Mass Cure Wounds, and then we get a bunch of Paladin spells as well. And then we also get Conjure Barrage, which is interesting as well, but I kind of like it though. It's cool. It fits the theme of the Steel Defender, which is coming up, and that we also can help defend our allies. I think this is a 7 out of 10 overall. I think there are a few of them that I don't think that I would really bother taking and preparing most of the time. So yeah, this is a 7 for me. Next at 3rd level, we get Battle Ready, and this gives us 2 key features. The first is proficiency with martial weapons. That's wonderful. This opens up our possibilities immensely as an Artificer to be able to do a lot more than what we could before. And you'll see that in our build guide later this week. But this is fantastic and absolutely wonderful. And then if that wasn't good enough, it also allows us to use our intelligence modifier to make attacks with any weapon as long as it's magical. You're an Artificer. Your item is going to be magical, like 100% of the time. So this is always going to be active. This is a 10 out of 10. Like, this is an amazing feature to pick up. Finally, at 3rd level, we get the Steel Defender, and this is, of course, the main feature of this subclass and allows you to have a metal pet, which is awesome. Now, this thing is pretty cool. It's pretty fast at 40 feet and is decently beefy as it levels up with you, which is awesome. And it also uses your proficiency bonus as it levels up as well, so that also adds a level of scaling, which is great. Now, it does use the new companion rules, which are way better than they used to be. Basically, you can direct this to do whatever you want it to do on your bonus action. Otherwise, it will just use the dodge action. So if you need to use your bonus action to do something else, that's fine. It will just dodge, and that will make it a little bit harder to hit. We haven't even gotten to the best part, though. This thing's called the Steel Defender for a reason, and that's all because of its deflect attack feature. Basically, if it's within 5 feet of a creature, and that creature makes an attack onto a creature other than it imposes disadvantage, basically jumping in the way of the strike, grabbing the dude's arm or whatever it is. Like, that's really great, and really makes this thing a really nice frontline fighter with you. Obviously with this subclass, you're kind of wanting to be up in people's faces for the most part. You know, you can make a ranged build with this, but honestly, I prefer to go with just the melee and get up in people's faces. But you know, you can always change it up. This is really cool. And the HP is going to be nice. It's going to be like 57 by the time we reach level 10, which is great. This thing just is really nice. It's really hardy. It's got really good features. It can be healed with mending, which gives you another reliable use of the mending cantrip. I think this is great. I think it's a 9 out of 10. The damage isn't fantastic. So that's what keeps it from being a 10 out of 10. But the deflect attack feature is super useful, being able to just impose disadvantage if it's up there with you on the front lines. At level 5, we of course get extra attack, and this of course is one of the best features in the game. So yeah, this gets a 10 out of 10. I always give extra attack a 10 out of 10. It's great. So now you get 2 attacks, and your dog can still go and do things on its bonus action. Yeah, this is great. At 9th level, we get Arcane Jolt. And so this is pretty cool. It allows you to add a little bit of extra damage to your strikes. So if you're using a magical weapon, which of course you always are, or your Steel Defender deals damage, which is great, you can do one of 2 things. You can either add 2d6 force damage to the hit, or you can heal a creature or object within 30 feet of you by 2d6. And this can happen intelligence modifier times per day. Now, one interesting thing in the reading here is that it says it can only happen once per turn. So basically this prevents you from doing it with yourself, especially with, you know, your extra attack. You can't do it on both attacks. You only get it on one, or you get it on your Steel Defender. You don't get 3, you don't get 2, just 1 on your turn. However, opportunity attacks are not on your turn. And so this means that an opportunity attack could feasibly use this. And so that way you can actually possibly do it in one round more than once. But it does have to be not on your turn in order for this to happen. And, you know, technically we could do this up to 3 times in a given round because your defender acts on its own as far as reactions. It takes its own reactions. So you could use up to 3 uses of this in one turn if you wanted to. Obviously, this is 3 of probably 4 or 5 by this point. So, you know, it is quite costly, but that's a lot of force damage. So I definitely think it's really, really nice. Or you can heal. And it does say creature or object, so this implies that you can heal the defender in this way. You probably could get a little more shenanigans with objects, healing objects. Most of them don't have HP, but I'm sure there are some that, you know, if you ask your DM to do something, I'm sure that that's something can happen there just by that wording. But I think this is cool. I really, really like this. It's force damage. So, you know, force damage is almost never resisted, which is great. And this will scale later on. So this is a 9 out of 10 for me. This is great. It's awesome to be able to add extra damage or do some healing for not that big of a cost. Finally, at level 15, we get Improved Defender. And of course, this is a really, really awesome ability. So basically, we get a couple of things out of this. We get our Arcane Jolt doubled to 4d6, which is great. We get our Defender's armor class raised to 17, and it also now does damage whenever it uses its deflect attack feature, which is basically its most spammable feature. It's great. It's a really, really awesome ability. And so now you can start chipping people away when it's just near you, which is awesome. Yeah, this is a 9 out of 10. Like, all of these things are super useful. Scaling your Arcane Jolt, of course, is amazing. It's force damage. It's wonderful. Adding your AC, making your companion just a little bit more difficult to hit. 17 isn't a crazy armor class, but it's not terrible either. I've definitely seen worse, especially with the old rules for the Beastmaster Ranger. Oh boy, that was a nightmare. But yeah, this is still cool, and it's pretty robust at this point. You know, it's got around 80 hit points by now, which is awesome. Yeah, this is great. 9 out of 10 for sure. So overall, what do I think of the Battlesmith? This thing's neat. This thing's really neat. So we get the martial weapons, but even more importantly, we get to use our intelligence modifier for our weapons. This is immensely useful so that we don't have to invest in strength or dexterity in order to use these weapons. That's always good. We are always using magical weapons, so everything just kind of works as a kit. There's no reason that you should ever be using a non-magical weapon. And one thing that's great is you get to be a frontliner, but you don't necessarily have to have the best AC because you have the Steel Defender to impose disadvantage. So this is really, really good in combination. All of it meshes together. All of it works together. It's basically taking what the Beastmaster Ranger is and just turning it super like steampunk metalworking, like really, really interesting flavor. I really, really like it. I think it's great. I'm going to say that this is a 9 out of 10. I don't think it's quite armorer status, but I do think it's a little bit better than the artillerist. So I think it slots right in there at number 9. So it is cool that we ended up with 7, 8, 9, and 10 for these. That will not be happening for all of them. There will be, you know, huge gaps for some depending on how good or bad something is, especially when we get to the barbarians. Just kind of spoiler alert there. But yeah, this thing is amazing. I really, really like this. It opens up so many possibilities, and we're going to explore those on Thursday. So that is it. Let me know what you thought about the Battlesmith down below in the comments, of course. And yeah, stick around. So later this week, we will be covering a build of this on Friday, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be doing some unique stuff, just like we do with all of these. We're going to be bringing in some really, really cool multi-classing to it, and we're going to be making this a really, really fun build. So make sure that you are subscribed so that you don't miss that. And until then, I hope you have a great day, great week, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.